Hey Van Heist, welcome back. So week 2 of our clay unit is going to involve us making not tiny foods this time, but we are going to be making tiny vessels. We're going to be using a methodology today known as coil building. So take a look at these photos. All of these vessels or clay containers were made using coils. And really what a coil is just a long string of clay. You could almost think of it as like a spaghetti noodle or snake-like. We're going to be using coils to build our vessels today and then taking photos of what we make. Let's get started. All right, so I've got my clay here at the ready. Let's get into some clay coil pot making. So the first thing you're going to do today is just start with one color. Maybe I'll go with this pink. I'm going to take my other pieces, put them aside. Remember, it's best to work on some kind of cardboard or plastic, something that you don't mind getting a little bit messy and yucky. That way, it won't get your table all yucky. So here's what I like to do when I build a coil pot. I first like to start with a small chunk of clay, and I'm just going to be working with the pink for right now. And I'm going to try to roll this as thin as I can. Normally in the Van Heist art room when we do coil pots, I tell our friends to not make clay coils any thinner than like your pinky or a pencil. But since we're working with modeling clay, that gives us the ability to work a lot smaller. So I'm going to try to roll this pretty thin. Now while you're rolling a coil, it's a good idea to move your hand kind of back and forth. If you stay too long in one area, that area is going to get really skinny and the other area is going to remain thick. Okay, that's a pretty good coil. It's about as tall as my hand, so I'm going to start working with this one. Now, in order to get it to coil on itself, all we have to do is slowly start to curl it, kind of like a snail's shell. We're building the base of a coil pot right now. Now, if this was the art room and we were using regular clay, the kind that we put in the kiln, we would be adding some score marks and some slip to keep this stuck together. But modeling clay has a pretty good way of staying together. Now, once your base is as big as you want it, you can think of this as like the bottom of a bowl or a cup. Then you can start to build it up onto itself, just like this. Do you see how I kind of went from going along that coil and now I'm all of a sudden on top of this coil? Great. Now that's the beginning of my little coil pot bowl. I'm going to roll a few more coils and keep on building. Now I've got my second coil at the ready, but I want to make it look like these two are kind of connected to each other. So I'm going to actually press it together just a little bit like that. And do you see where those two meet right there? I'm going to try to smooth that out with my finger so it's hard to tell where one coil starts and the other begins. There we go. Keep on coiling. I have just a little bit left here. I think I'm going to try to make a handle for this little pot. Maybe for my handle, what I'm going to do is take a tiny little coil and I'm going to create a C shape, but then this top part is going to kind of curl downward. This is actually what's going to attach. Maybe I can squeeze that, make it a little bit flatter with my finger. What we're making is kind of like a mini coffee mug. All right, looks pretty well attached. Maybe I'll squeeze this one a little bit flat as well and attach it right here. If you have a tool like a plastic butter knife or something else, you can use that to sort of attach the different elements of your coil pottery. And look at that, a mini coil pot complete with a handle. It's a pretty cool way of making pottery, and there's a lot of different ways to do it. I'm going to work with my other colors for a little while and see what I can come up with. Another way of doing this is starting with a little base chunk. So maybe something just like this. I want this coil pot to be a little bit skinnier than my first one. So I just made a tiny little coin shape hunk of clay. That's gonna act as my base. Now my coils are gonna be built up from there. I wanna see if I can make a tall and skinny looking, sort of like a vase looking piece. Well, here's my 3 different pieces of coil pottery. You've got the pink coil coffee mug, the blue coil vase complete with a red rose, and the coil built out of coils honey jar. This is a great project to just kind of experiment and have fun and see what works for you. I wish that these were pieces that we could put into the kiln and then you could have be real pieces of pottery at home. But since we are using modeling clay, they are just, it's just for experimentation. Make sure that you take a photo of what you create and send it our way. If you want to create more tiny foods to put into your tiny vessels, that could be awesome. Thanks so much for watching Van Heist, and I hope you have a great time creating your coil pottery. Have a great week.